It fucks up the framework and the groundwork for the world that we operate in.
So where does this leave society? When those who are elected to represent the public no longer have the motivation to do so? How can balance be re-achieved? What else can alter the framework of the world around us?
If you think in terms of our communication environment, the advent of the net represented a tremendous inflection point. Before that, the sources of information that we had were pretty much institutionally structured.
That very strong filter is breaking down, and that's giving people around the world the chance to think for themselves.
I have a real bug about this. Nobody respects books anymore. Books going out the window and everyone's reading on these bloody screens. Yeah. It's just so easy to Google stuff and everyone's just like, oh, let's check Google. No! It's a real big bugbear for me. It really annoys me.
Where do you get most of your news from today?
I think the internet, actually.
Suddenly it's a different world. The folk that controlled big media now no longer control the whole of that media environment.
We're not reliant, say, in England on the Daily Telegraphs and the fear that politicians have over 2 or 3 publications.
Blogs have become the media. There really is a public debate. This is like the public forum of Athens or Rome.
It's the freedom to do what you want. Can't nobody tell you what you can and can't do on the internet. You can do what the hell you want to do when you want to do it. You may connect with somebody in another country who may have some information that really enlighten the world. Because we don't know it all in America. We only know half the story. I was, closed-minded. I was just thinking about California and the lifestyle I grew up in.
In Alice in Wonderland, it said something like this: how do I know what I think until I hear what I have to say? On the internet, you can actually express yourself out loud. You can add new dimension to thinking. And for the first time, if you have an opinion, you can go out there and express it. And if you have the ability to promote it, you can get attention for it.
Post it, and before you know it, 1 million people can be following you, talking with you, and respecting your views. Or they could be talking bad about your views.
All of a sudden, issues that would not have been discussed before are being discussed.
There's these little communities based on ideas and thoughts that are building, and then those ideas turn into other ideas and other programming, and it's weird if you were to look at it like on a chart or on a graph.
In terms of the war on drugs, the internet has been phenomenal. There was a great thirst for the truth, and so anytime that truth leaked out on the internet, people would just jump on it. Oh, marijuana has medicinal benefits? Oh, wow, Richard Nixon already had the report that said that marijuana wasn't bad for you? They jump on it, and they think, thank God there's now something that lets me access the truth.
I was online in '94. That's when I first got online. But it didn't really do anything. It was sort of like putting around, and no one knew what was going on. You've got mail.
Everyone I know is on it. Email, instant messages. There's no better way to keep in touch.
You've got mail. Now with 56K, connections are faster than ever. It's fast.
If you have a phone line, you can go online.
What will they think of next?
And the mail was all bullshit. And then slowly but surely, it became this interacting monster that it is today.
Anything that you need to know about marijuana, you could just go on there and look, and you could have your mind changed instantly.
In the old days, when there was 20 hippies sitting around trying to legalize marijuana with their little flyers, there was no way to fact check any of it. It sounded like a crazy hippie. Wait, you're telling me marijuana's safe and it helps you with headaches, anxiety, and all these important medical things that we're taking all these pills for? Yeah, right, old hippie. But nowadays, these hippies are online and they have proof and facts, and for once we're like, wow, that's not a crazy hippie, that's a smart hippie.
I can pick this phone up and within 10 seconds I can Google any complex question that would have required a serious education to answer before. It's become so commonplace that we don't realize how fucking completely insane it is. It's a culture-changing reality shift. People like me who had to read about things in an encyclopedia and actually go to a library and take out books on things, I'm a fucking dinosaur. The young kids that are coming up today, from the jump, have had the internet. They don't know what the world is like without the internet.
The internet is beginning to shake things up in politics, but the old momentum is clinging stubbornly, irritatingly, and disturbingly.
With the recent NSA leak, I think that you see a very specific example of politicians trying to destroy freedom of expression and freedom of speech. Collecting data on people and spying on people is a form of intimidation. If you know that the government is watching what you're doing, and you know that the government is monitoring what you are saying and what you are advocating for, you are less likely to be politically active. You are more likely to be intimidated by power. They're using that as a way to tell us to shut the fuck up.
The West fought for 500 years to acquire these basic rights, and just to hand them away thoughtlessly means that we have to fight again for hundreds of years to get them back. It's very hard to acquire basic human rights. It's very easy to give them up.
The establishment is scared to death of the internet because that's the one thing they can't control. So they figured out a way to control our politicians through donations. They figured out how to control TV through the advertising. But the internet is the wild, wild west, and they can't grab it. And no matter how much they try to plug all the holes in, the truth seems to get out one way or another anyway. It's basically a whole world sharing with one another. And the one thing that we're sharing that's really doing them damage is the truth.
The trend, if you pay attention to it, clearly is the dissolving of boundaries between people and ideas and information. And it's all going to come to a head.
The first cracks in the monolith of prohibition have already happened. Suddenly, you have Washington and Colorado actually succeeding in passing these legalization regulation ballots and becoming the first jurisdictions anywhere in the world to do so.
What's happening in the United States is that the entire underpinnings of the war on drugs are being pulled away by the population of the United States itself.
Washington State and Colorado that make it legal. And they're like, look, man, it's fucking legal here, period. It's not medically legal, it's legal. And the DEA's like, whoa, you better not. Like, what do you mean we better not?
Come on, what is our fucking voting system for if a piece of legislation that the people want gets up there and you're still going out of your way not to recognize it? How could you ask people to believe in the process if you won't respect the vote? You can't ask people to vote. They won't want to.
That's all that's going to have to happen to tear it all apart is more states just say, you know what, we're going to legalize.
They become a force that can stand up to the status quo. It's then you start to take what is yours instead of waiting for the corporations and the government to give you what they think you deserve.
One by one, individual states are defying the federal government and responding to the wishes of their own immediate population and changing the state law. Once we see that gaining pace in the United States, it's going to gain pace in the whole of the rest of the world as well.
The International Narcotics Control Board has made it clear that Washington and Colorado are in breach of the UN drug conventions. They're effectively breaking international law, and that the US is, by dint of what's happening in Washington and Colorado, also in breach of the UN conventions. Given that the UN drug treaties were very much driven by the US in the first instance, it does put them in this rather odd situation where something that they drove the formation of, they are now being disciplined and condemned for violating.
Because how can they impose these appallingly damaging laws and conventions across the other countries of the planet when they're legalizing in their own backyard?
I think it makes it very difficult for the United States to try to hold other countries in line. In Uruguay, they are experimenting with a completely new approach, and that is for the state to be selling marijuana in marijuana shops throughout Uruguay.
All across Europe, in Australia, and in fact all over the world, the whole house of cards is already coming crumbling down.
I mean, even by the time you put this documentary on air, I'm sure that there are going to be more states that have voted with their feet and changed the legal status of cannabis.
A big step today for those hoping to legalize recreational marijuana in Alaska. The campaign to regulate marijuana turned in more than 45,000 signatures to the lieutenant governor.
I mean, it's impossible to keep up right now when it comes to research, political development.
Constant stream of books and documentaries, podcasts and blog posts. The information is just overwhelming. They just can't stop releasing shit. Just like you can't stop making documentaries about it, just like I can't stop talking about it on stage or in a podcast.
What's weird is in 10 years from now, you're gonna look at this film like, that's ridiculous. Remember when they had to make films about legalizing marijuana?
And it's one of the reasons why the age of information that we exist in today is so fucking important. It's so important because it's never been in the hands of the people before. And this is what happened. In the hands of the people, you see more progress in 10 years than you have in 200 years before. Because it's swarming. All the greedy pigs are trying to hold on to it, but it's like standing in the middle of the river trying to catch all the salmon with your hands. You're not going to.
The world is already moving. We already own it like we want it. They doing it in Seattle, Washington, recreational. You know, I'm on my way out there as soon as I get off this TV screen. Recreational work.
Establishment figures, they're beginning to get the message. They're realizing that it isn't in their interests any longer to demonize cannabis.
It does not make sense from a prioritization point of view for us to focus on recreational drug users in a state that has already said that under state law that's legal.
When you see a broad social change taking place in society and you realize that you are behind the curve, then you pretty soon get it, that you have to catch up with the curve.
It seems like they're falling under the weight of all this. They just go where the wind blows in order to stay alive.
I don't think it matters why people jump ship, as long as they do jump ship.
2009, you wrote a Time magazine article entitled "Why I Would Vote No on Pot." You've changed your mind.
I have, and as part of my thinking recently, I've apologized for some of the earlier reporting because I think we've been terribly and systematically misled in this country for some time, and I did part of that misleading.
There's a shift taking place in our culture. The issue is once again on the table. Will the forces backing marijuana deregulation overplay their hand in some way that allows the forces of incarceration to get a jump on them?
The war on marijuana is a symptom of something that's fundamentally wrong in this country. We have to break out of the fog because the media won't do anything. No president's going to come in and change things. It comes from the bottom up, not from the top down. So you can have minor little victories, but that's tinkering. 50 years of documentation says it's not working. And what do we do tomorrow? The same damn thing.
Truth is not repeating what everybody around you automatically says. It is not repeating what everybody's going to pat you on the head for saying. It is looking for the things that people will not pat you on the head for saying, because those are the things that people really need to know. And once you are damned convinced of something of that sort, then it's your obligation to go out on a limb for it. That's truth.
We have to figure out, A, that we are temporary, and we are the people that have to pass down this fucking incredibly fucked up mess to our children. And unless we operate this world with the idea of sustainability for the culture, sustainability for the community, sustainability for humanity in general, you're gonna have resentment at every turn. You have people profiting and people failing and people being victimized. But the reason why we are so complex is also the reason that I think that we have hope.
8 years and 2 films later, we once again arrive left with more questions than answers. Where do we go from here? How do we move forward without taking 2 steps back? And again, sits that ever-lingering question that we just can't seem to shake.
Will marijuana ever fully be legalized?
Probably yes.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm no doubt about it.
Marijuana prohibition is a zombie. It is a walking corpse.
It could be decades, but historically, it's a blip.
I think marijuana will be fully legalized and taxed in my lifetime. Whether we'll ever get Singapore doing it, we'll see.
Globally? I can see Iran doing it, can't you?
Instead of going one city, one state at a time, make that shit legal everywhere and pop the top, and let's go.
I think it's just around the corner, but I've always thought that. I've been wrong up to now, so I'm probably wrong now. I don't know.
I doubt it seriously. I believe that the forces controlling the way things work in the United States will give us lots of process before we ever get to total legalization.
I can die with the satisfaction of knowing it's inevitable now. They're never going to get the cat back in that bag again. He's out. And what we see now is this culture struggling to make an accommodation for this new kid on the block.
There'll come a point, when this will probably end. But if it's not today, then somebody will be locked up today. Somebody's life will be ruined today. And that somebody is probably hundreds of people. To begin to demonstrate an understanding of humanity is so counter to our way of thinking. It's throw away the key. Let's lock them up. And you believe it up until your son or your daughter or your friends or yourself gets caught up in the same nightmare. And then now you're going, oh my God, now I understand. But do you?